Welcome to Stress Testing Your Future. This is the SafeSimpleSound podcast, where our approach to financial planning creates both and solutions for the contradictions families face every day. In today's episode, we are exploring a critical challenge that affects almost every retirement plan we review: the danger of relying on averages. We recently wrote about this topic in our blog because we've noticed a pattern. Many families come to the planning table seeking certainty in an uncertain world. They want to know exactly what the market will do, exactly what inflation will be, and exactly how long they will live. But here is the reality. You don't live an average life. You live a specific one, filled with ups, downs, and surprises. Whether you are 10 years away from retirement or navigating your first year of financial independence, this episode will give you the tools to move from prediction, which is just guessing, to preparation, which is true, sound strategy. Today, we are going to look at how we apply the sound element of our framework to ensure your plan can survive the real world. We're going to talk about why traditional planning often fails due to the flaw of averages, and how we use tools like range estimates and Monte Carlo simulations to build a plan that is truly bulletproof. If you've ever worried that a market crash or an unexpected inflation spike could derail your future, this episode is designed to replace that anxiety with a systematic confidence. Let's begin by establishing the foundation of today's discussion. In the SafeSimpleSound framework, we often talk about the tension between two opposing forces. In financial planning, this usually manifests as a stressful dilemma, the choice between rigid security and risky growth. On one hand, you have the desire to avoid all risk, to bury your money in the backyard so you never lose a dime. That's rigid security. On the other hand, you know you need your money to grow to beat inflation, so you might feel pushed toward risky growth, hoping for the best. Traditional planning often forces you to choose one or the other. But through our SafeSimpleSound practice, we observe that this either-or thinking is dangerous. It leaves you exposed. The sound approach uses both and logic to resolve this. We build a plan that seeks growth and prepares for the worst. To understand why this is necessary, we have to talk about something called the Flaw of Averages. Imagine a river. If a statistician tells you that the river is on average 3 feet deep, you might think it's safe to walk across. But average is misleading. The river might be 1 foot deep for most of the way and 10 feet deep in the middle. If you plan for the average, you might drown in the specific reality of that 10-foot drop. In our practice, we see this happening with retirement planning all the time. If a plan assumes the stock market will grow by an average of 7% every single year, and inflation will be an average of 3% every single year, the math looks beautiful on a spreadsheet. It looks like a straight line going up and to the right. But that is not how life works. That is not how markets work. Markets are volatile. Inflation spikes. Recessions happen. If you plan for a smooth, average ride, you are not building a plan for the real world. You are building a fantasy. This is where the safe element of our framework comes in. We want to remove the judgment and the fear around this volatility. It is not a failure of the market when it goes down. It is a feature of the market. And it is not a failure of your plan if things change. It is simply a signal to adapt. So how do we fix this flaw of averages? Drawing from our S3 methodology, we shift from static numbers to range estimates. A static plan says you will have exactly $2 million at age 65. That sounds precise, but it is fragile. If you land at $1.9 million, you feel like you've failed. A sound plan says, based on reasonable assumptions, you will likely land between $1.8 million and $2.4 million. Notice the difference? This aligns with our principle of the Trustworthy Tortoise. We aren't promising a sprint to a specific rigid finish line. We are promising the endurance to finish the race regardless of the weather. By using ranges, we acknowledge uncertainty rather than pretending it doesn't exist. This creates psychological safety. It gives you permission to be human. It allows the world to be messy without breaking your financial future. When we work with families using the SafeSimpleSound approach, we find that embracing this uncertainty is actually more reassuring than a false guarantee. When you know your plan has a margin of safety, a buffer zone, you sleep better at night. You aren't watching the stock ticker every day, terrified that a 1% drop ruins your retirement. You know that a 1% drop, or even a 10% drop, is already baked into the range we've planned for. This is the essence of sound planning. Defining your assumptions, calculating your gap, and then ensuring the plan can survive the specific bumpy reality of life. Now that we've established the need for ranges over static numbers, we need to talk about how we actually test these ranges. How do we know if the plan will hold up when the storms come? In the engineering world, before a car company sells a new model, they don't just drive it on a sunny day on a flat road. They crash test it, they freeze it, they overheat it, they stress test it to see where it breaks so they can reinforce it before a real family gets inside. In our SafeSimpleSound practice, we do the same thing for your financial plan using a tool called the Monte Carlo Simulation. Now, Monte Carlo sounds like a gambling term, and ironically, it's named after the famous casino, but in financial science, it is the exact opposite of gambling. It is the gold standard of professional stress testing. Here is the simple explanation. Instead of assuming the market grows 7% every year in a straight line, a Monte Carlo simulation runs your retirement plan through 1,000 different parallel universes of market history. It tests a scenario where the Great Depression happens right after you retire. It tests a scenario with the high inflation of the 1970s. It tests the dot-com boom and the 2008 financial crisis. It shakes your plan up 1,000 different ways. The output isn't a dollar amount, it's a probability of success. A score of 85% means that in 850 of those 1,000 simulated futures, you never ran out of money. You made it to age 95 or 100 with money left in the bank. This metric is far more valuable than a static number because it accounts for something called sequence of returns risk. This is a technical term, but it's easy to understand. It matters when the bad stuff happens. If the market crashes while you are still working and saving, it's annoying, but you can recover. If the market crashes the year you retire and start pulling money out, it can be devastating to your portfolio's longevity. Monte Carlo testing accounts for that bad timing. It ensures your plan can survive bad luck. To illustrate this principle of stress testing and sequence of returns, let me share a hypothetical scenario. While this story is created for educational purposes, it demonstrates patterns we frequently observe when families apply S3 thinking to retirement planning. Consider a fictional couple. Let's call them the Millers. The Millers are 60 years old and planning to retire at 65. They have saved a healthy nest egg, and when they look at a simple online calculator using average returns of 7%, everything looks perfect. The calculator says they will have plenty of money until age 95. They feel secure. However, when we apply the SafeSimpleSound framework to this hypothetical situation, we don't just trust the average, we run the Monte Carlo simulation. In our fictional scenario, the Miller's stress test comes back with a probability of success of only 60%. Now pause for a moment. Why the disconnect? The average return calculator said they were fine, but the stress test says they fail 40% of the time. The stress test revealed that the Miller's plan was extremely sensitive to a market downturn in the first 5 years of retirement. If the market was flat or down between age 65 and 70, they would deplete their principal too fast and they would run out of money by age 82. In this hypothetical, the Millers felt a moment of panic. That is a natural reaction. But because we operate from a place of safe and sound wisdom, we don't view a 60% score as a death sentence. We view it as data. While this story is fictional, it demonstrates how our framework protects families from hidden risks. The average calculator hid the danger. The stress test revealed it. But here's where the S3 mindset truly shines. We don't just identify the problem, we apply integration over abandonment. We don't throw the plan away. We pull strategic levers to compensate. In the Miller's hypothetical case, we looked at the 4 levers available to them. 1, the serial lever. Could they increase savings right now? In this story, they were already saving aggressively, so this lever had limited power. 2, the lifestyle lever. Could they live on less? We switched their plan from a capital preservation model, trying to leave a huge inheritance, to a purchasing power model, focusing on their own needs first. This helped, boosting their score to 70%. 3, the growth lever. This is often where people go first, trying to chase higher returns. But in our S3 philosophy, this is the last resort. We prefer to solve problems with things we can control, not by gambling on the market. So we left their portfolio allocation alone for the moment. 4. The time lever. This is the most powerful lever in the deck. We looked at what would happen if the fictional Millers worked just 2 extra years, retiring at 67 instead of 65. This change had a double effect. It gave them 2 more years of saving and growth, and it reduced the retirement period they had to fund by 2 years. When we reran the hypothetical stress test with a retirement age of 67, their probability of success jumped from 70% to 92%. Through this example, you can see how thinking applies. The Millers moved from a fragile plan based on averages to a robust plan based on stress testing. They didn't have to win the lottery. They just had to make a small strategic adjustment to their timeline. Whether you're facing this exact situation or something similar, the lesson is clear. A static number is a guess. A stress-tested plan is a strategy. By facing the hypothetical storms in the simulation, the Millers avoided facing a real crisis in their actual lives. They traded 2 years of work for 30 years of peace of mind. That is the definition of sound financial planning. I want to briefly expand on those levers we mentioned in the hypothetical because understanding them empowers you. When you see a stress test result that isn't 100%, you are not helpless. You have control. From a SafeSimpleSound perspective, this provides the stability we look for. We categorize these levers based on how much control you have over them. First is the serial lever, saving more. This is the most direct fix, especially if you are younger. It's simple math, but if you are close to retirement, it might not be enough on its own. Second is the time lever, retiring later. As we saw with the Millers, this is often the heavy lifter. Working longer isn't just about money, it's about shortening the duration of the portfolio withdrawal. It aligns with the principle of stewardship, managing the resource of time just as carefully as the resource of money. Third is the lifestyle lever, reducing the goal. This sounds painful, spending less, but often it's just about clarity. Do you really need 2 vacation homes? Do you need to leave $2 million to the kids? Or is $500,000 sufficient? When we clarify the sound definition of enough, the plan often fixes itself. Fourth is the growth lever, accepting more risk. I want to reiterate our team's stance on this. This is our last resort. We prefer to solve problems with savings and time, things you control, rather than by gambling on higher returns which you do not control. But here's the most important takeaway for today. A financial plan is not a stone tablet. It is a living organism. It breathes and adapts with you. Sound planning means reviewing these stress tests annually. If the market drops 20% next year, we rerun the simulation. If you inherit money, we rerun the simulation. If you decide you want to retire early, we rerun the simulation. This dynamic approach ensures that you are never relying on a guess you made 10 years ago. It allows us to apply the safe principle of non-judgmental adaptation. Life changed? Okay, let's update the coordinates. The destination remains the same, but the route might shift. As we wrap up today's episode on stress testing, let's summarize the insights we've covered. Traditional planning relies on averages, which leads to the flaw of averages, a false sense of security that can crumble when real life happens. The SafeSimpleSound alternative is to use range estimates and Monte Carlo simulations. We test your plan against 1,000 different histories: the Great Depression, the inflation of the 70s, the booms, and the busts. We're not looking for a dollar amount, we're looking for a probability of success. And if that probability isn't where we want it to be, we use our 4 levers: savings, time, lifestyle, and risk to bring the plan back into balance. S3 doesn't just sell a plan. We provide a stress-tested architecture. We provide confidence not by predicting the future, but by ensuring you can survive it. This educational generosity promise means that by understanding how stress testing works, you are now protected from false promises of guaranteed 10% returns or get-rich-quick schemes. You know that the real gold standard is durability, not speed. So what is your next step? You have your assumptions, you have your calculations. Now, let's see if your plan is bulletproof. This episode draws from our recent blog post, Stress Testing Your Future, which you can find at SafeSimpleSound.com. Through our S3 approach development, we've created 2 specific resources to help you apply what you learned today. First, you can download the Constitutional Stress Test Checklist. This walks you through the three-storm simulation to see if your current plan can handle high inflation, low returns, or living to age 100. Second, we invite you to download the complete S3 Capital Needs Master Plan. This is the synthesis tool, a dashboard to bring your assumptions, calculations, and stress tests into a single, living document. If today's S3 insights resonate with your family's situation, we invite you to explore what financial planning could look like through our Safe, Simple, Sound practice. We can run these simulations for you, helping you pull the right levers for your specific life. But either way, whether you partner with us or use these tools on your own, you are now equipped with the capability to look past the averages and prepare for a sound, resilient future. Thank you for listening to the Safe, Simple, Sound podcast. Remember, plan for the range, trust the tortoise, and build a future that is safe, simple, and sound.